Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Destination Next, a series of programs in which we will explore new and exciting places around the Greater Toronto area. I'm your host Bilal Tahir, but I'm not the only one on this exciting journey. With me, I have my fellow explorers. And you are watching Destination Next.
A new destination, well, fascination. We'll go exploring a new creation. See to feel earth, travel around the world. See to feel earth, travel around the world. So here we go, a new destination. Some inspiration, a little agitation, more complication. We'll push our minds for some formulation. We'll go exploring a new destination. Destination Next.
In this show, us kids will travel around the GTA to learn about the environment that surrounds us. Exploring is promoted in the Jamaat because in the Holy Quran, Allah had laid great emphasis on traveling. Say, travel in the earth and see how He originated the creation. Then will Allah provide the latter creation. Surely Allah has power over all things. Previously on Destination Next.
In beehives, we have 3 members, only one queen. You hear the sound of the bees. Here we will see the offspring, the queen.
Last week, we learned all about honeybees. But Naval, did you know that honeybees are endangered?
Really? It seems like every place we visited so far has had animals that were endangered. I wonder why so many animals have become endangered.
I've heard that human activity is causing the extinction of hundreds of species around the world. One of the biggest threats to these animals is habitat loss. Climate change, pollution, and deforestation are some of the ways humans are destroying the homes of many animals.
Let's go speak to someone who can tell us more about habitats and how we can help protect these animals. Today we're at Kortright with an expert whose name is Heather. Hi, Heather.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. So welcome to Kortright. I'm the education supervisor here, and we do a whole bunch of different programs here. We do school groups and family programs and festivals and things like that. And today I hear you guys have a few questions. What did you want to learn about today?
Well, I had a question about habitats. I really don't get it, but why are habitats so important? And what can we do to conserve them?
Okay, perfect. Well, habitats are important for a couple of reasons. Basically, different animals and plants, they all need very specific things to survive. So just like in your house, you want specific foods that you really like, and you have your bed that you really want to sleep in, and you know your route to school. So different animals here and plants, they have different things that they need. So there's certain animals that need certain plants to survive for their food, or maybe they use them for shelter. Or they just need the space to survive. So that's why our habitats are important. So they include the food, the water, because that's important too, shelter and space. Food, water, shelter, space, okay? Now, in terms of habitat conservation, we need to conserve all 4 of those things. So unfortunately, what happens is a lot of adults, they come along, they see a space like this and they think, wow, I might like to put a house right here. Well, if they put a house right here or a road, they're going to cut down the trees, and that might remove some food for some animals or some shelter for some animals. Or sometimes what they do is they drain the water out of a pond so that they can make a farm, or so they can put a road there. And then animals don't have water to drink, or they don't have a space where they live, because there's lots of animals that live in the water too, right? Now another thing that happens, so we've got lots of plants here actually. Right now it's fall and we've got tons of lovely fall flowers. So this little meadow right here is a perfect example of a wonderful habitat. This, you can see some blue flowers, some purple flowers, some yellow flowers. Those are all native species, which means they're meant to be here. And they are providing food for different insects like bees. So bees might come to this goldenrod here and get some food to take back to their hive, which is super important in the fall so that they can have enough food for the winter.
I have a question. So you said there's native plants, right? What about the animals? Are any native animals here?
Yeah, definitely. So here at the Kortright Center, we have lots of native animals, things like deer, and there's mice and squirrels and raccoons and chipmunks and foxes. There's coyotes here. There's all sorts of native animals, and they all require this space to live. Now, one thing that happens is we get non-native animals and non-native plants coming in. So those we call invasive species. An invasive species of an animal might be something like a house cat. And a house cat, they come in, so if you let your house cat out and it comes into an area like this, it's going to catch and kill things like small birds or mice and things like that. And those are the native species that are supposed to be here. So keeping your house cat indoors is really important. There's also non-native plants. There's something called garlic mustard and dog strangling vine. Those are two plants that take over an area. So if we had dog strangling vine or garlic mustard here, that's all you'd see. And those things, they don't flower in the fall. And if you can think about those bees again, if we had all garlic mustard here and no flowers, then the bees wouldn't have food in the fall, right? So that's where animals and plants that aren't supposed to be here, how they kind of ruin habitats sometimes.
Why are bees going endangered?
Well, bees are going endangered for a few reasons. Sometimes because of habitat loss. So again, people are putting their houses or their roads in nice areas like this and taking away the habitats. And sometimes it has to do with chemicals. So people put chemicals on their lawns or on farms to keep other pests away. And unfortunately, it also harms the bees. Yeah, and we have actually tons of species of native bees that are meant to be here, and they're often solitary bees. So they're not like what you think of in a honeybee, which is a big hive of bees. They actually live on their own, and they live in the ground, they live in trees, they live in stems of plants, and they're super important as well for pollinating. Honeybees are actually non-native. Did you know that? They're not actually, yeah, they're from Europe. But that's okay. They're important for our food production. So we need to make sure that our honeybees stay safe so that we can get some food for us.
How do honeybees make their honey?
How do honeybees make their honey? Well, they go to different flowers and they collect pollen from the flowers. They bring that back to the hive, and then they make honey out of that. So they use the pollen and the nectar from the flowers to make their honey. And that honey is actually food for their babies. But they make so much honey that they don't need it all. So we take a portion of the honey for us to eat, and then we leave the rest for their babies to eat over the winter time. And the pollen is what's important for our food. So when they go from plant to plant, they're taking pollen from one plant to another, and that fertilizes the plant so that then we get fruit and things like that.
Word of the day.
Why would they put pollen in a different flowers? Like, I thought they're just gonna bring it back to their house.
Well, when a honeybee goes, they can collect nectar from a few different flowers. So it's like filling your tummy. You can drink from a glass more than once. So they can go to one flower and drink a little bit of nectar, go to the next flower, drink a little bit of nectar. And as they go to each flower, they get this yellow pollen on their bodies and on their legs. And then a little bit falls off in the next flower, and that's what pollinates the flowers. And then if it was an apple flower, for example, then once it's pollinated, we get an apple. So not all flowers have nectar because some flowers are actually pollinated by the wind. So the flowers are producing the nectar to attract things like bees and flies and other insects so that they'll come in, get the nectar, and then take pollen to another flower. But a different flower that's pollinated by the wind, its pollen just gets blown in the wind to the next flower over, and they don't need insects, so they don't have that sweet treat to attract the insects.
So technically, when another flower has nectar in it, they're like kind of using it to help a different flower to get pollinated, right?
Yeah, of the same species usually. So if it's an apple flower, the pollen has to go to another apple flower.
Apple orchard.
We are here in Hadika Ahmad, and we have also bees and an orchard, apple orchard and pear orchard. I want to tell you that Khalifa Khamis Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasir al-Aziz has planted one tree here in this orchard. In this orchard we have many varieties of apples here. It is not a good area for apple trees here because normally apple trees grow on a level of the sea at least 1,000 meters up. Normally, it's cultivated or implanted in mountain area, and the weather here is very humid, and it influences a lot the quality of the fruit too. You ready? Okay. Go.
Can't hold any of the ball. Get in there, bro. Me. He fell out. Give up. Quickly. You want to take the basket? But then they take up too much space. I know.
Okay, stop. Stop.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 35, 36, 40, 41. What? 41!
41 to 35 girls win the competition.
Can we take an apple home? What's that sound?
What would happen if all the honeybees go extinct?
Well, if all the honeybees went extinct, we'd lose a lot of food that we like to eat. So like blueberries, apples, they're all pollinated by honeybees because we plant them in big fields, and our native bees can't do that much pollination. So that would be bad. And in terms of our native bees, if they weren't available to pollinate all of these flowers, then we wouldn't have all these lovely flowers to look at.
First of all, are beavers going extinct?
Beavers were at one point going extinct for sure because of hunting. So people were hunting them for their fur. And there weren't very many beavers left. They're starting to make a comeback, but we've taken some of their habitat away for our farms and things like that. So as we protect habitat and water and rivers, then more beavers can come back.
So, you know how beavers, they like chop down trees, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it like kind of killing a tree though? Isn't it like bad for like the environment or no?
Well, it's sort of, it's like a give and take, right? Yeah, so they do chop down live trees. The reason they do that is for their food. So if we look at this log here, what a beaver actually eats is the layer of growing tree that's underneath the bark before like the wood. So they scrape off the bark with their teeth and then they actually eat the layer in between. The reason they chop down the tree is so they can get to the top branches of the tree. So they like all those thin branches and they'll eat the leaves and things like that. They also use the trees for building dams. So when they chop down bigger pieces like this, they'll chop them up into the pieces and then they'll bring them to a spot where there's running water and they make a dam. And the dam stops the water so that there's a big pond of water behind. And what happens is actually that pond might even drown some of the trees in the area, and they'll chop and eat those ones too. But then you get a pond habitat, and a pond habitat is really important for a whole bunch of creatures. So there's lots of animals that need that habitat to drink their water. There's animals that also live in that area, so ducks will start to live in the dead trees next to the pond. They'll use the pond for finding food and for swimming around for their space. Other animals like bugs and insects, they actually have their babies in the water. So many things need and use ponds that it's really great that beavers actually create ponds.
How do beavers get like those big teeth like this?
Yeah, so if I gave you this tree, do you think you'd be able to chew it down? No. So your teeth aren't made for it. So what beavers have is these two big front teeth. And on the front of them, if you ever look at them, they're actually orange. And that's because they have a really hard dentine layer on the front. And on the back, they're white like ours. So as they chew, the hard layer stays there and the back layer actually breaks away, just like our teeth would break if we started to chew on a tree. And that makes like this really sharp edge. So the front edge is staying there and the back edge is breaking away, making a V shape, nice really sharp edge, and that's what gives them the sharp edge to be able to chew and break off pieces of trees. Their teeth do wear down, so their teeth actually grow for their whole life.
In winter, do beavers like go to like warmer places or do they stay like in Canada in winter?
Yeah, they stay in Canada. They have a beaver lodge in the pond that they create, and the entrance is underwater, and it's this big pile of sticks, and it's hollow inside, like their house. And inside there's a platform above the water, so they swim underwater and up into their lodge, and then they sit. The trees that they've chopped down in the fall, their leaves and their branches are under the water, so they can grab some of those branches and bring them into their lodge to eat.
What about the tail? What does the tail do?
Yeah, so beavers have this big flat tail. It looks like a paddle. So they use it for swimming. They also use it to warn other beavers of danger. And if there's something dangerous or scary nearby, what they do is they slap the tail on the water and it makes a big splash, and all the other beavers and a lot of other animals around know that there's danger and they can go and hide.
Is there for like that goldenish brown hint to like camouflage, or is it just like that? Or what's the reason?
Yeah, so certainly to camouflage for sure. The beavers also have interesting fur. It's 2 layers. So if you can see at the sides here, there's like a shiny layer. That layer is actually waterproof. And it keeps the water from getting to their skin so they don't get cold when they're swimming around in the winter. And then below, which you can see a lot on top here because the outer layer has been taken away, is really fuzzy fur, and that's what keeps them warm. So they've got a fuzzy warm layer and then a waterproof layer on top.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So what can us 10-year-old kids do to protect such a big thing?
Well, we can help protect different habitats in different ways. So beavers might be a hard one for a 10-year-old to protect, but certainly what you can do is to help keep their habitats clean. So when you're out on a walk next to the river or next to a pond, making sure that you're picking up garbage and taking that away, because that can choke and harm a beaver. And if we think about the plants and bees and things that we were talking about earlier, what you can do is take away those invasive species. So you can join a community program that might be pulling garlic mustard or dog strangling vine. Those are 2 good ones. Or you can plant trees to make a habitat. So there's lots of community programs around that are helping to add trees to parks and green spaces, and you can go and join them. And then you can also, in your own garden and an area, you can plant native plants. So if you've got a garden at your house, you can plant native plants for the native bees to use. Even if you're in an apartment building, you can have plants on your balcony that flower at different times of the year to help different species of bees and insects.
What's that sound? Duck. What's your name and what do you do?
My name is Lois, and I'm a volunteer with LEAF.
So what does LEAF stand for?
LEAF stands for Local Enhancement and Appreciation of Forests. We're a nonprofit organization, and we promote forestation through education and plantings, tree plantings.
So what kind of projects do you work on?
Well, as I just mentioned, we help people plant trees in their backyard. We have a backyard program, and people have the option to pay for a service, and they'll send an arborist right to your home, and it helps you choose the right tree for the right space. We deliver the tree, we plant it, we put mulch around it, and we teach you how to care for the tree. There's also a do-it-yourself program where you get to plant it yourself, but we still give you all the advice up to that point. We also do public plantings in new parks, new public spaces. We do education as well. We have what's called a Tree Tenders program, and we teach people all about trees, and they can even guide tours for other people to learn about those trees.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Join us again on Destination Next. Khudafis!
Next time on Destination Next.
So these guys are our sand tiger sharks. They look very menacing, but they're not as dangerous as people make out. And we actually feed them 3 times a week. But they're a very smart animal. They've been known to hunt together. I've heard one of you guys say that they don't have bones, and that's true.
Jazakallah for watching. We hope that you liked our episode today. You can also get creative and share with us your pictures and drawings for a chance to win Destination Next souvenir. Also, tell us where you'd like to explore next on Twitter and Instagram at MTA Canada. We look forward to hearing from you.
Think about the difference between like a wild blueberry and strawberry versus a farm of blueberries and strawberries. So wild blueberries and strawberries are here and there and everywhere around the forest. So the native bees, they pollinate those and it's no problem. When you have a farm, it's like a huge football field of just blueberries. And the native bees might like go to the edges and do a little bit, but the honeybees are like the workhorses of pollination. So we put like a hive in the middle of a farmer's field and then they can pollinate like the whole field.
I feel like touching it.
Yeah, go for it.
What if it jumps?
Oh, it's fine. If it jumps, it jumps.
I stood back for a reason.